Oh my goodness. Welcome to Behind the Pulpit for March the 3rd, 2025. We have entered into March, and is it March that comes in like a lion but goes out like a lamb? Is that what I remembered from growing up? Did you remember that, Pastor Dave?
Yes.
Goodness. Well, I tell you what, it did come in like a lion because it was freezing yesterday. Saturday I felt like it was spring, and then yesterday it was boom, cold.
I went on a walk with my wife Saturday. It was kind of windy, but we were still enjoying the sun and a little vitamin D. I noticed you have a lot of gear on again today.
Let me sidestep my question. Yes, my other Contend shirt came in. Look at this. This is like
Do you work here or something?
It's almost like I work here. Are you saying that I can't wear the gear while I'm working
Absolutely
here?
not.
Okay.
It's just good radio.
Yeah. Anyway, that's another reason why if you are listening to this on podcast, go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe and comment so that we get more people who are following our content. Isn't that what all the YouTubers say?
Something like that.
Something along those lines. Like and subscribe, like and
I
subscribe.
think they say smash that like button.
That's right. Smash the like button. There you go. And they do this motion. Smash the like button. Anyway, yes, Pastor Dave, this was my gear. Have you partaken in the NBC store or not?
I'm saving up my money right now. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well,
I'm with you. I haven't.
I got two
partaken
kids
either.
in college right now, Bob. So
that's true.
It's
Well, there are
phase of life.
stickers. There are stickers. So maybe you can get a sticker
Start
and
there.
put it on your computer,
Yeah.
like all the cool kids do nowadays.
My computer is definitely in need of some bling or whatever they call it. It's pretty plain here. So.
There it is. Oh, what was that?
That was a fresh
Nobody
sticker.
saw that.
He's already got one on
Leave
his
that
phone.
on the ground.
It
All
didn't-
right.
it
Well,
didn't
we're
work.
glad that you're here today, and we're heading for an exciting show. We got an action-packed show, so let's get started with our world-famous segment in the news. All right, so a couple news stories for this week. Number one, the Oscars happened last night, so why don't we chat a little bit about that? That'll lead into my thought following that. And then also, probably the biggest news story was this interaction with President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. Is that how you say his name? Mm-hmm. It's not Vladimir, it's Volodymyr, which I guess is similar but not the same. So, I've seen a lot of posting and stuff on social media, a lot of different opinions on who started this and what did that. And I think one of the things we can say about this is just the whole Ukraine situation is very complicated because, yes, Russia was the aggressor that came in, and people want to obviously support Ukraine, but at some level, we don't want this to escalate into World War III. So how do you get there? It's a very, very complicated situation. A lot of different things that are needing to be teased out with this. I guess I was watching some interview with Marco Rubio. He was talking about the things that were leading up to it, and then things went sideways in this negotiation. So it's complicated. Hopefully that they can come back to the table and come to an agreement and bring. I think everybody wants the end of the war. So how do we actually accomplish that is the big question. One of the things for Christians is that we definitely should be praying for the situation. We should be praying for wisdom on all sides, and we should be praying that good would prevail over evil, I think, in the whole situation. Do you have anything to add to that, Pastor Dave? It was a noteworthy thing. I think we should mention that it happened, and we're kind of in the midst of it right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm still sort of forming my opinion about what happened. It was shocking.
Yeah. Normally you don't see that type of stuff in the Oval Office. It's kind of like backroom dealing.
You assume that stuff might have happened behind the scenes, but this was happening while all the cameras were rolling, which was kind of new. So that was certainly newsworthy. My encouragement is to do a little bit of a deep dive of diplomacy and see some of the details rather than just jump to a conclusion about what you think is right with a snap judgment. Yes, there are some moral absolutes we can certainly affirm, but try to stay away from the virtue signaling, I've got it all figured out, and maybe think a little bit deeper about what's the best pathway forward in light of a extremely complex situation.
Well, the other thing I think in terms of intaking the news, a lot of people are watching this 10-minute segment that happened at the end of a 50-minute press conference. So I would encourage everybody to go watch the whole press conference, listen to some people saying about this is what we talked about before we came in there, looking at the whole context and kind of make a decision and opinion based on those things rather than just the 10 minutes at the end, which probably don't represent the entirety of what's going on.
Certainly.
Yeah. So there you go. So that was the Ukraine thing that happened in the Oval Office. Second thing was the Oscars happened yesterday, and one thing that I want to mention, and then I know Noah's sitting over there, and he had something else he wanted to mention from a previous award show. But Kieran Culkin, what did he win for, by the way? I didn't see what he won. I just saw his acceptance speech.
Best Supporting Actor.
Best Supporting Actor for which movie? Do you guys know which movie he was in?
Give me a second here.
Okay. He'll look it up. He was in a movie. He won Best Supporting Actor. The newsworthy thing was, refreshingly, he got up there during his acceptance speech. He thanked all the people that he normally thanks, but he specifically thanked his wife, Jazz. Was that her name? I think it was Jazz or something like that. And they joked on stage, basically, about having more kids and making a bigger family, which is so counterintuitive to a lot of the messaging we've been hearing at some of these award ceremonies recently, that I thought it was wonderfully pro-family in terms of what he was doing. So the thing was, he said, if he won a Screen Actors Guild or an Emmy or a Golden Globe.
So like he had previously been nominated for an award, and his wife said that if he would win that previous award, they would have 3 kids, and then he won it, and then he jokingly said after that, if I win an Oscar, can we have 4 kids? And then she said yes.
So since he won the Oscar, he said, all right, let's get started on the fourth kid after that. So, but I will say that not only is that refreshingly positive, but in our larger cultural conversation, we are having people having less kids, and that's a problem in society in general. Like having more kids secures, people coming after you. Not only are you raising people to impart your values, but just societally speaking, it's a big problem if we have a low birth rate. That's usually signaling a decline of some kind of whatever society you're a part of. So this is a wonderful thing. I think the message is get married, have kids, and yeah, that's a very good thing. Pastor Dave, did you watch any of that? Did you see any of that, or no? Is this news to you?
I saw the headline about the pro-family stuff. I didn't know that guy was still an actor. I do remember he was the little brother.
I think he's Macaulay Culkin's.
Yeah. He's 2 years younger than Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, he's still making movies.
I just put that together. So same last name. Haven't thought about him since like the 80s, but here we are. And apparently he's enjoying family life.
Noah, you said you also saw another guy during his acceptance speech had a real positive message. Who was that?
So there was another awards show called the SAG Awards. It's kind of similar to the Oscars, but not as prestigious. And it was for the Best Actor award, and Timothée Chalamet won it. And his speech was kind of unique. He, a lot of them will get up there and they'll kind of go through the motions and say kind of the same things. But he kind of got up there and he was like very honest. He was like saying like, I know people don't usually talk like this and blah, blah, blah. And he was kind of saying how like he wants to be one of the greats, and he listed off a few of the actors, and he was saying like, this is like motivating me and I want to be up there with one of the greats. And I thought it was kind of unique. You don't really hear people talk like that. He's a younger actor who's still kind of up and coming in some ways. So it's kind of
he's a really good actor. I know, and with quite a bit of range. So I forget, you said he did the biopic for Bob Dylan,
right?
But he also starred in the Dune movies, and where I first saw him was in this. I don't know if it was released in the theaters or if it was just on Amazon, but it was a movie called Beautiful Boy, which was all about addiction. I think I actually used that for a sermon I did on the opioid stuff a few years ago, and he was just really, really good in that in terms of portraying the struggles and everything. So he's a very good actor. So that's really
Wonka
cool.
Too, in the most recent.
He was. Oh, that's right. So he's all over the place. Yeah, Timothée Chalamet, excellent actor, great range. Check out his work. But that's cool. The acceptance speeches are taking on a bit of a different tone, which I like. Maybe that'll increase the viewership for these nominations. Did you want to mention anything else on those?
Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay. So going along with that, this I think is probably a better place to put my thing. I do want to make a recommendation. Amazon has released basically a Life of David show that they partnered with, I think it's Wonder something, the studio. But it was Christian investors that invested in this project to make it come to fruition, and they really wanted to put together give David the Hollywood level treatment, not in the degradation Hollywood realm, but in the scope. And I've only seen the first 2 episodes, and I am quite impressed with House of David on Amazon. Now, some people might say, well, you know what, they're taking some license as far as creating the backstory to everything that's happening with David. There's some scenes that aren't explicitly mentioned in the Bible. But it's pretty interesting what they're doing. I think they're trying to thread the line of being very biblically faithful, but giving some backstory to what was going on with David. For example, David's brother Eliab in the second episode, they create this whole interaction with him about what was their relationship like, even though that's not explicitly mentioned in the Bible. You only see that Eliab was there, and Eliab was thought to be the one who would be anointed king, and the show creates a little bit of a backstory of what might that relationship have been like, while still finding the tent poles of what we find within Scripture. And it's done very, very well. The first season is the whole arc of David and Goliath. So it starts off with this opening scene of David starting to face Goliath, and it's going to end, of course, with a 2-episode, confrontation with the giant, and you get the other scenes in 1 Samuel 15 to 17 built in. And there's some flashbacks and stuff like that. So they take some license, but overall I think they get at the heart of what's going on with the biblical story. I did want to make a recommendation. We're not doing a normal book ward today, but this book, a book called Faith Driven Investor, I heard on this, they have a podcast too, that part of this movement were the folks that helped to raise the capital to create this House of David series on Amazon. So some people with capital, good business people that have a desire to see Christian values and something else coming out of Hollywood that's very biblical, invested in the project, and I think it's worth giving it a watch. And let us know in the comments if you've seen it and if you like it.
So after the 8 episodes when he kills Goliath, is it possible that they're going to renew the show and do more?
My understanding was they're going to do
episodes?
either. I think I maybe saw 3. I would say that if they're doing this that way, I could see 3-4 seasons of this.
So multiple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you
potentially
have the David, like young David and Goliath, and you have the arc with David leading up to Saul's death. So like the end of 1 Samuel, and then you have like David's reign. 2 Samuel leading up to David and Bathsheba, and then you have David's like the fall of his house at the end and his death. So to me, that's almost like 4. I could see 4 seasons being done, at least right there on David's life. I mean, there's so much. When we did the David series, we talked about how I think we have the breadth of what we have about David's life is unparalleled in the Scripture, other than what we know about Jesus. Do I remember that correctly? That's right, right? We know more about David than almost anybody else in the Bible.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we have our David book that's coming out soon. So
yes.
We Need a King. We hope to publish that any day now. So we'll let you know when that's out.
Yeah.
So it'll be good
when it's
timing
out,
with
we
the
should
series.
We should bring up the series again and say, hey, go and read our book, and also watch the David series.
By the way, Doug Wilson's son was involved in the writing of this particular special. N.D. Wilson.
N.D. Wilson. Mm-hmm. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So, House of David. You got to check it out. You got to check it out at least and let me know what you think, because it was I watched the first episode and I was like, wow, this is impressive. You see,
sounds like some good wholesome entertainment, although maybe a little violent.
Well, I mean, David's life. I mean, I think it's true to what's going on with David's life. I definitely would say it's PG-13. They're not pulling any punches. Mm-hmm. There is a verse in 1 Samuel 15 where Saul does not kill the king of the Amalekites. So it opens up with the aftermath of that battle, and when Samuel confronts Saul and tells him basically the Lord has rejected him, it says that Samuel went to this king and hacked him to pieces, and that scene is in this show. I mean, it wasn't like a full-on camera shot, but he definitely hacked him to pieces. They leave some things to the imagination, but yeah. So it's true to the Bible.
Theological commentary on that. So there is one of the most famous sermons of our generation about that text, preached by Dr. John MacArthur, using that as a New Testament allegory for killing sin. And so he says, this is a picture. Saul was commanded to totally put to death this particular type of the flesh, so to speak. And you should show them no mercy. You should leave them no quarter. And MacArthur said that's exactly what we're called to do right now in the New Testament with regards to our sin nature and our flesh. We're supposed to hack it to pieces. Yeah. And he has a great way of just drawing out the New Testament truth in a very gruesome Old Testament story.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to do if you were preaching that text like from a pulpit modern day. Like,
what do you do?
But MacArthur figured it out. I thought it was really impressive.
Yeah.
So one of the better sermons I've
that
ever
in particular,
heard.
and the actual confrontation with Saul and Samuel, the Saul being honest about the people wanted that. You can start to see the complicated nature of Saul.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who's playing him is actually really, really good. And the guy they have playing David right now is a younger guy. I imagine they'll have to change actors if they continue to go on with more and more seasons. But I would imagine this is going to get some attention, which is good.
Check it out.
All right. So Bible Book War. So we agreed last week that do you want to have some commentary about the scoreboard here, Tim?
Yeah. So that's the score. Onward.
Okay, light commentary on that. But we agreed last week that rather than just doing a normal book, we would each recommend Bibles, I guess, versions, or a lot of times they have these specialized Bibles. So we're going to come.
I think that's appropriate. The Bible is the best-selling book of all time.
It is.
I believe there's 5 billion Bibles that have
if
been
we both
sold.
recommend the Bible, it would have to be a tie. But we're going to recommend different types of Bibles that you might
translations,
get.
versions.
Yeah. All right. So how did you take this? Are you going with a specific translation, or did you go with a specialized Bible?
Yep, both. So,
okay,
you want me to go? All right.
Go ahead. Well, you're I'm leading, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. So NIV Study Bible. So this is where I cut my teeth, sort of like getting interested in the Bible for the first time. The NIV translation is known as...
Is that duct tape on the side?
Yeah.
Red duct tape.
The NIV translation is known as the...
1984
more readable
NIV,
translation.
Right?
It's called the dynamic equivalence philosophy. So it's less word for word and it's more thought for thought. It's translated on an 8th grade reading level. All my memorization is in the 1984 NIV. The first NIV was 1978. Then they revised it in 1984. And then in the mid-90s, I think it was 95, they came out with the NIV Study Bible, put together by Ken Barker as the general editor. D.A. Carson did a lot of work in this book. There's a lot of well-known scholars that put time into this. It's awesome. Mine is totally falling apart, so I don't use it that much anymore because it's just it just hasn't held up. But it's been a blessing in my life. I like the NIV in terms of reading long portions of the Bible in one sitting. I like the paragraphs and how they're set up that way, and it's just solid. Doug Moo from Trinity was a big part of the NIV.
Moo.
He's no joke, man. So I like it. It's widely readable, very good for memorization for me. And they did redo it in 2011. So I
remember when I was in
now.
seminary, they were working on I think that was the codified version. When I was in seminary from 2005, 2009, because I think Blomberg did work on the what they call the TNIV, today's New International Version. And there was a big controversy because they made more gender-inclusive language for areas that allowed for it, but it just definitely did cause an uproar. And I think they codified it in 2011, this is the updated NIV. They removed the T.
Well, I think they changed it again. So the TNIV was a separate translation, and then they updated it again for
okay, but
the newest one.
Can you get the
2011.
TNIV anymore?
I don't think you can.
Yeah,
I think it was largely a flop.
Yeah.
It was not popular.
It wasn't. Yeah, I remember that being the case.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the 84 version is no longer available. I guess you can get it on eBay and used copies and stuff like that. But if you go to Bible Gateway and you click on NIV, you can't get to the 84. It won't let you. So, it's now a relic at this point, I guess.
Wow.
Of my generation. But it's good stuff. That's the one I recommend. There's so many good Bibles, though. It's hard to even pick. But that's the one that you often see me preaching from and carrying around and stuff like that. So, NIV Study Bible. Check it out. Get it at, garage sales. Tim, you can't get it.
If you have one, don't get rid of it then.
Yeah.
And you can't get it again.
It's going up in value like
Put it in your safe.
Baseball cards. Every day.
Pastor Dave, for someone who is down in the book war, recommending a Bible you cannot purchase anymore,
I know,
is a little bit of a risky move. We'll see how We'll see how Noah handles that.
Like a museum find, more like a rare art
show and tell,
gallery.
if you will.
Yeah. You have
All
to
right.
have like an auction.
Well, I didn't take my preferred version is I do like the NIV. I grew up on that. I currently like the ESV. I also appreciate parts of the NLT. But I took it as I was going to recommend a augmented by like what some of the articles and stuff they put in there. So I'm going to recommend the Apologetic Study Bible because that's been more of my jam recently. It is in the Christian Standard Bible version. Put out by Holman Bibles. The thing I appreciate about this is if you go through and there's certain passages where you have questions, they build in apologetic articles to help you with the tough passages of the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So there is articles from 90 leading scholars, Chuck Colson, Paul Copan, Norm Geisler, Josh McDowell, Al Mohler, J.P. Moreland, and Lee Strobel, among others. And they just do a wonderful job of helping to equip you to defend the veracity of the Bible in the course of reading through it. So if you want to read the Bible with that lens and you want to know how to answer the tough questions, this is a good pickup for you to have in your biblical arsenal, as it were. The Apologetic Study Bible. And Tim, I will mention again, check out that cover.
Well, it is Noah you're appealing to this
okay,
week.
Noah, check out that cover right there. Look at that. That's very attractive, I think.
I don't have this one, but I've heard the articles are good. I think Gary Habermas also has some stuff in here.
Yeah, Gary Habermas.
I believe I actually purchased that for my dad as a gift at the last Contend conference.
Ooh, we did have it in the bookstore for
Yeah,
the
it was
last
definitely
Contend
that
conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I remember the controversial thing here with this translation was they, instead of doing Lord, they actually just brought over the Hebrew word Yahweh, right? Isn't that
interesting?
What the CSB does?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that this is the one that does that.
I'm sure it's because Holman published it that they use that version. I don't know if they have it in a different version. So I don't know if they have it in the NIV. But
solid, man. Is it only available in hardback, or can you get this in like a soft leather cover? Or
that's a
like
great
that?
question. I will have to look it up there.
That's a great question. I'm all about
I'll look
the
up
soft
Amazon
leather
right
cover.
now.
Hardback doesn't feel right, man. I don't know.
I also enjoy the Gospel Transformation Bible. I could have brought that one. But,
So while you're looking that up, Noah, do you want to give your analysis on the on your findings?
Noah gives wonderful analyses on these things. He likes to build up.
This was a difficult one. I do like the NIV translation, but I'm thinking about this as my personal choice. So for me, I have most of my Bibles in the ESV, and then I have one Bible at home in the NIV. But I don't have any in the CSB, and I don't have any study Bibles that speak to apologetics. So I think I'm going to have to go with Pastor Bob's. I find it very intriguing.
Man, continue to pull ahead.
Apologetics is something that I have been wanting to learn more about, so I think that's got to be my choice.
And Dave, I did look on here. I noticed that this is available as a study Bible in mahogany leather touch, index black leather.
Ooh.
Yeah, a couple. There's and it comes in a couple different versions. There's a student black tan leather touch right here.
I might have to get
Apologetic
one. I just
Study
ordered a
Bible for
Bible.
students right there. All right, so it looks like you got some choices right there if you want to go pick it up.
I'm all about the soft cover. My actually, I just mentioned I just ordered a new Bible. My wife's Bible has the ESV journaling study Bible, but she's got it in hardcover.
Yeah,
and I really liked it, and I wanted a journaling Bible, and she's got all sorts of cool charts and stuff in there. So I ordered a soft faux leather
one. Not the mahogany leather touch.
It's coming tomorrow between 4 and 8 a.m.
Of course, my go-to usually is the ESV study Bible, but this is the one I brought down today. So there you go. All right, man, that was.
You just pulled into double-digit territory.
Congratulations.
Well, you know what? You're going to have to recommend some better books. I don't know what to tell you.
I guess so. Or maybe books that are actually available.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, Dave. Speaking of crazy things today, I actually have a chart that I'm going to share today.
What? You don't like charts?
I'm not a crazy chart guy, but this one I thought was really helpful. Do you have it to show it up there?
You?
There it is. Look at this. So this chart right here is courtesy of Jason Kovacs, who's runs a group called the Gospel Care Collective, and I did a training season with him, I think a year and a half ago, on biblical counseling. So I did a 9-month course on that, and I found him to be super helpful. He was sharing this on Twitter, and this is a graphical way of looking at the church liturgy and how you can approach different seasons. And I thought it was appropriate to share this because this Wednesday It's now Monday, March 3rd. This Wednesday, March 5th, is Ash Wednesday, which begins the season of Lent leading up to Easter. Now, Lent, I think a lot of people think is a Catholic thing, and that's not really true. It's just a season of preparing and fasting and awaiting the arrival of Easter and the resurrection. And then after that, you have Pentecost. And then I like the way he put this ordinary time. Like there's nothing necessarily on the church calendar until you get to Advent, which leads to Christmas and Epiphany. And then you have ordinary time before you get to Lent and Easter. So it's kind of revolving around, the major Christian what we would call holidays, and the words he uses around the outside are things you can focus on during those different seasons of the year, along with that beautiful graphic in the middle that would make Mark salivate to look at that. I think I need to share this with him.
I'm salivating. Ordinary time just cracked me up, man.
Yeah. There you go.
If you're a Christian, your year is very top heavy.
What do you think about that chart, Dave? Is that you have any disagreements or
no? That's what I learned in seminary.
Yeah.
I was not a liturgical high church kind of guy, but I did first learn the word ordinary time in seminary when somebody first explained to me the fact that there was a calendar before Hallmark came along and invented a bunch of make-believe holidays that actually are just about selling cards and so the Christians have a way of like creating a rhythm in the year, and the different seasons are actually purposeful, and they're supposed to like take you on a journey every single year, deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, have you ever gone on a long trip and you get like jet lag?
Oh yeah.
I think in a way sometimes Christians can have like spiritual jet lag. They don't like know what time it is. They're like, oh, am I supposed to be repenting right now? Am I supposed to be waiting for the second coming right now? Am I supposed to be like, is this time for fasting or is this time for feasting? Or, well, the Christian calendar was invented to create like a universal rhythm so that Christians would like have a way of organizing their own pursuit of sanctification, not like everybody doing their own thing. We would all be like pursuing something together. So
Yeah.
it's cool. And I love the chart. It's a nice circular shape.
2 weeks in a row, we've had a circle or a semicircle.
That's
2
right. Let's
round
use the peacemaking one last week.
We are seeing a pattern here.
I see that. I will note that getting into the Lenten season, it is a focus on repentance and confession, and a lot of times the fasting is supposed to draw that out to what are the things of this world that I need to repent of and let go of as I prepare for and await the resurrection that is to come through Christ. So
this is Fat Tuesday tomorrow, Mardi Gras.
That's right.
Time to like stuff your face and get ready for Ash Wednesday to
we should have had
fast for 40 days.
Pastor Chad Boudreau on here to talk about Mardi Gras down in Louisiana.
Yeah. Are you going to give up something for Lent this year?
I'm going to limit. I don't know if that's a good challenge. I should think about something specifically that I will give up. Mm-hmm. You know what I should do? I should totally give up coffee. I think I'll do that. Yeah.
Really?
No.
Yeah. I've done it.
Tell you what.
Wow.
Someone's gonna have to pull Bob's weight at Barrister if he's giving up coffee.
There's tea. I mean, you can get other things.
They're gonna lose some business.
Yeah.
There you go. They do know my name over there. All right, and that ends the chart segment. Man, we had action-packed in the news and the book war and the culture and the chart. And now, Pastor Dave,
wait till you get to the sermon section. There's multiple questions.
That's
today.
where we are. We're now at the sermon section, and it's going to be almost all questions. We had 3 to 4 audience questions that came in.
Guy.
Don't lose heart. There he is, right there. Did you get to clip out the prop issues from the last 2 weeks and put them in the last episodes?
Yeah, it was so Pastor Dave's was in 2 episodes ago, and I was able to clip yours out and put it in. I actually did 2 clips. The first one was the balloon blowing away. And the second one was you not being able to tie it. They went back to back.
Oh,
so
man.
If you're watching
what? I got to go back and watch that segment. I think I didn't watch the whole thing.
It was good.
I'm sure it was wonderful.
So I decided to not use a prop.
No props this week. I think I'll commit to no props this upcoming week.
I could have had a candle. I was using a candle on the screen. I thought that was safer than trying to bring fire on the stage. In light of what's happened with the soda can and then the balloon, I'm like,
not having great track records.
What's going to happen with fire?
Wouldn't be the first time.
This could go really bad.
Although you could have done that
on the screen
and then asked people if they thought it was a good idea.
Guys, in light of like what you've seen the last 2 weeks, you think I should light this thing?
Prop malfunction right there.
Probably just stay away from that. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, what were the questions? Well, maybe give us the overview, 60-second overview,
seconds into the
and then we're just going to let the audience give some
Okay.
feedback.
All right. So 2 Corinthians 4 and 5 was the assignment. And
Notice
I think
he only
it was
did half the assignment.
Monday, I might have emailed you like, Bob, there's so much good stuff here in 2 Corinthians 4 and 5. This is more than a sermon. Like, I have over an hour of stuff already, and it was like Monday or Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah.
So I said, can we just
We may have had a 2-hour service.
package 4 for one Sunday and then push 5 for Easter, because it's all about the hope of life after death. So, and you said okay. So chapter 4 is a unit, I think, about the main argument is like, how do you not lose heart? He repeats it in verse 1 and verse 16. And then I came up with this acronym about how we would resolve not to lose
That
heart.
was a wonderful addition from your run-through.
Thank you. I probably spent way too long figuring out that acronym. And
I was
wanted
listening
it
and I
to
said,
be
I think he
all
only had
verbs.
3 points, and he made it 7 points.
I wanted it to be all verbs, but it wasn't. But
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
some way to remember, how do we not lose heart? So I think it's a hopeful passage, even though there's deep suffering there in some ways. Even that suffering is something that Paul is rejoicing in because it points to the suffering of the Savior. And he's going to push forward because what's temporal and what's present is not worth comparing to what's eternal and what's weighty, the glory that is to come. And that's 2 Corinthians chapter 4.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that's 2 Corinthians 4 is one of my favorite passages, and I thought you did justice to it. Thank you for
It is a lot of
calling
gold
us
in
to
there.
resolve in the midst of a dark world. All right. So, what were the questions that came in, Tim? And then, if that doesn't take up enough time, I'll think.
I
of
think
something
it
to
will
ask.
take enough time. So this first question comes from our friend John Rickershauser.
John.
Hey, John.
It's been a while since we got a question from John.
This question says, if God revealed to Peter that Jesus is the Messiah, did Peter have free will to answer Jesus' question? Does God, in his plan, reveal himself to those that are veiled? And then ultimately, did we do this one last week?
That we did last week.
Oh, okay, we only have 2. So sorry. Maybe he submitted it again because I don't remember seeing his name on it last time. So this is the second question. I don't know who submitted this one.
There's the third one from Ruth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week's message reminded me of the blind man in John 9. Jesus said, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. It is hard to find a meaningful purpose while actively in the middle of suffering. Can you share experiences when you learned to embrace whatever God allows?
Okay. You want to trade them one and one or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it's a that passage is meaningful to me. That was one of the passages that my wife and I had talked about a lot while we were pregnant with our son Josiah, who was born with special needs, and we were asking ourselves the same question as we were facing the unknown of what was going to come and what we were going to have to walk through. And I think it's a natural question to ask God, why me? Why us? Why would we walk through this season? And I love the way that and I specifically said, pointed at that verse, that this may happen so that God might get the glory. So as difficult as it is to walk through suffering, I do think there is an element of sanctification that God uses in the midst of suffering. It forces us to take our eyes off ourselves and throw our eyes up to Him and ask Him to help us get through it. Like you were talking about on Sunday, the whole idea of I can't, like, have you ever gotten to a place where you say I can't continue on, I can't keep going? How do you not lose heart? And which was really the whole point of your message. I think God takes us to those places so that we can understand that the only reason we can continue on is because Christ empowers us through His Holy Spirit. Christ has won the victory. Jesus is enough, and that gives us the strength to keep going. But it's not easy. I will certainly admit that there's going to be ups and downs, but in the midst of it, we hold on to the God who is at the other end of the rope. Yeah,
that's a good parallel passage to the truth of 2 Corinthians chapter 4. I think it was Tim Keller who said there's 2 paths that people can go down when it comes to suffering. One is the anger path,
Yeah.
And the other one is the I'm not remembering.
It's not acceptance, is it?
Guilt path. I think it's like, are you going to be lashing out at others because they've done this to you, or are you going to be like going down into
self-pity.
victimization, self-pity?
Yeah. Woe is me.
Which path should we take? And Jesus is saying that neither one of those paths are helpful. So the glory of God is a different path to take. It takes faith, but it's
in Tim Keller fashion, there was a third way.
Yeah. There always is. It's a good question. Thank you so much.
We actually talked about that a bit on our youth retreat too. One of our leaders recently has gone through a really tough season with a bunch of things that have happened in her life, and she gave a testimonial message on Saturday night about how through all that, how God shines through. And then the same God who she had all the kids come up with like words that you would think of that God is in those good times, and then she flipped it. It was like in those bad times, those same words still apply. He's the same God in those good times and those bad times. It was really cool.
And it is inevitable that we will suffer and experience loss at some point in our lives. If you haven't experienced that yet, you will at some point. And so use even the good times to prepare yourself for what's going to happen. Like, know about the goodness of God and know about his mercy in the good times so that you are prepared for the bad times when they do indeed come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right.
I'll take the other one.
All right, here we go. Question number 2 from Ruth Prothero.
Well, we didn't get to the John one.
Oh, no, that was the one we did last week, I believe.
No, we didn't do that last week.
You know what? I think we... Yeah,
did I copy the wrong one?
I think we talked about it, but we didn't actually use it last week.
Oh, it's a different veil. Okay, no, this is the new question. I saw the word veil. It's a similar question, so I guess we'll go back to it. So the question, this is a new question. If God revealed to Peter, sorry, John, that Jesus is the Messiah, did Peter have free will to answer Jesus' question? Does God in his plan reveal himself to those that are veiled, and then ultimately it is by their free will to accept it or not?
Yeah. So the answer to that question depends on a theological presupposition that you might have. And so if you are more Arminian, then you'll answer it one way, and if you are more Calvinistic, then you'll answer it a different way. I am more Calvinistic and Reformed, so my understanding of the will is, like Jonathan Edwards said, the will is free, but it is only as free to choose as what its nature desires to choose. So the problem is in our nature, and we used to have, before Christ intervened, before the Spirit quickened us, a nature that always is inclined to evil continually, according to Genesis chapter 6 and Romans 3 and other places. And then the Spirit regenerates us, like in John chapter 3, it says you can't even see the kingdom of God unless you're born again. And then after that, our will is changed to now want and desire what is best and good and what is pleasing to God. So when Peter was revealed this reality that Jesus was the Christ from the Father, Peter's affections were changed in such a way that he was drawn to the beauty of Christ. So that's the Reformed position on that text. If you're Arminian, you might take it a little differently and maybe interpret that a little bit differently. So I hold to something called compatibilism, which means that God is totally sovereign over all things, and then yet we are free as well, and then those two things work together in a way that's somewhat mysterious, but both are affirmed in the Scriptures. So, yeah, Peter was free to choose, but he was choosing that which was most pleasing to him, which was as a result of the regenerating work that God had done in Peter's heart. That's my view on that. You may not agree with that, John. I don't know, but that's one way to think about it. I don't know. There's some other ways to think about it, too. Yeah. Would you add anything?
No, because I hold the same position. I like the compatibilistic free will. I thought you did explain it pretty well.
Yeah. So it's a good question. And it's kind of related to the next question. So this will be a good segue into Ruth's question, Tim.
Great. All right. Here we go. Ruth's question. Thank you, Ruth. Paul talks about the God of this world blinding the minds of unbelievers, 2 Corinthians 4:4. And it made me think about the doctrine of election and reprobation. Maybe you could comment on and provide some clarity on how reprobation is a logical corollary. Good words. Corollary, sorry. To election or not. How do you explain the doctrine of reprobation without making God seem arbitrary? This is one doctrine that sometimes comes up when I am talking to non-believers, and I have a difficult time explaining it well. Thanks in advance.
Yeah, thanks,
You
Ruth.
talked a little bit about the reprobates in your sermon, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, they did come up. So the doctrine of reprobation requires a little bit of iron in the gut to talk about. It's the idea that God in his sovereign will passes over some individuals and ordains them to eternal condemnation. And that's challenging. So it's tied to this idea of predestination and election. And the way to talk about this and not make God into a moral monster is to understand what grace is and what mercy is. So if grace is a gift and if mercy is something that God freely offers to people and it's not justice, then God is not obligated to offer grace or mercy to anyone. So that's something that we need to kind of establish, that if the gospel is a gift, then none of us can claim, hey, God had to offer that to me or to everyone or whatever we want to say. So if we start there and we say grace is fundamentally undeserved, if you think grace is something people deserve, you're thinking about something, but you're not thinking about grace. Fair, what we deserve, what's just, is God's wrath and God's condemnation. So the fact that God is merciful to anyone is his prerogative, and that is a wonderful gift that God gives us. So the doctrine of salvation is that he chooses, though some are, though all are rebelling against him, he chooses to be merciful to some, but he doesn't choose to be merciful to all. So that I think you have to establish that first, that God is not obligated to show mercy or grace to everyone. Because grace and mercy are a gift. So if you start there, then you can kind of get to why this is not unjust of God to for reprobation to be true. So he gives undeserved mercy to vessels of mercy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's an error is if you take this too far. So there's a theological error here called equal ultimacy, and that's the concept that God ordains both the election and the reprobation in exactly the same way. The scriptures actually don't teach that. So the two sides are not symmetrical. They're asymmetrical. So God actively chooses to save some, and he merely passes over the reprobate and allows them to persist in their sin, which they love. And so equal ultimacy, or what's called sometimes hyper-Calvinism, or sometimes it's called double predestination, is that God is equally involved in both salvation and condemnation, and that's not taught in the scriptures. So I think they're asymmetrical. That's sort of the classic Reformed position. God actively intervenes to save some, and then he passively allows the reprobate to continue in their sin. The classic passage about this is in Romans chapter 9, where the potter has the right to do with the clay whatever he wants to do. Some he fashions for noble use, and then others are prepared for destruction. And the word prepared there is actually, you could translate it as they prepared themselves for destruction. It's not that God is the one who's preparing them by forcing them to hate him. This is simply their choice. As Pharaoh hardened his heart, this is what he chose to do, and God allowed him to persist in that sin. So that's the doctrine of reprobation. It's not totally easy to understand or stomach at first, but I do hold to it. So anything you want to add to that question from Ruth?
No, I think that was a good. I do understand why it's a challenging thing for to explain to non-Christians, because then it goes so against the current mindset that you're automatically going to feel like it's a barrier. But I would just say at the same time, I mean, we really should not try to get God off the hook for some things that he said in his word, and it's better to be truthful about what the Bible says. rather than try to bait and switch people.
So as a resource, the women at NBC are going through Ephesians, and Ephesians chapter 1 has a lot of language about election. And so
God chose us before the foundation of the world.
Yeah. I was asked to put together some materials to help people understand election. So I do have a PDF that I can share with Ruth or anybody if you want to learn a little bit more theology about that. So it's an 11 or 12 page PDF that I put together with lots of charts and graphs and vocabulary words. There's even a glossary, so I'd be happy to share that.
Can you give a signed copy out?
Sure.
Might I offer a follow-up question to this question?
Okay.
So this kind of makes me think about the parable of the weeds a little bit, and how, Jesus kind of teaches there that, there are people in this world that Satan will use to kind of choke the good seed. Are those people
the four soils?
No.
The path?
No. The parable of the
wheat and the tares.
The wheat and the tares.
Right, when the thieves come and sow bad seed, in Matthew, are those quote unquote bad seeds that are like, I think Jesus calls them sons of the devil? Are those people redeemable? Like, can they be used by him at one point and then they are then redeemed and, receive grace and find the Lord? Or are those people, outside of God's grace?
My view on that is that I don't think Jesus is specifically teaching about soteriology there, but if you want to interpret the parable in a way that helps us understand salvation, is that the weeds are the reprobate. So that's really who he's talking about there. So, there's a lot of lessons in that parable, righteousness and wickedness and how they interact with one another from an earthly point of view. But if you want to talk about salvation from a Reformed perspective, I would say the wheat are the ones that are saved, and then the weeds are ultimately the reprobate. Though that parable is not really talking about God's eternal decree and predestination and all that stuff. You really have to get into some of the other New Testament letters to really dive into those theological topics. But
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's a parallel concept there in a parable.
Cool. Thank you.
Very cool. So that question sort of dealt with the first part of the passage. I wanted to maybe ask a couple questions about the second half of the passage, where we talk about the jars of clay, and you had that wonderful image on the screen between the golden box and the cracked jar of clay, and which one do you think would be housing $1 million? So what is behind this jar of clay image? Is it like, how should that impact how I think about my own life and suffering? Did you find that image particularly helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think great 90s Christian rock band, by the way. I think the jar of clay
Jars of
imagery
clay
is
in open fields and wildflowers.
Here we go. We're having a concert today. I think the image there is just fundamentally communicating vulnerability, weakness, breakability. I think the fact that we are jars of clay is a reminder to us that it's not about us, that this power is from God and we're just simply vessels. And Paul in his ministry. So the context here, you'll recall, in 2 Corinthians is that there's these super apostles, and they're saying Paul is not really acting in accordance with the nature of his ministry. He should be stronger. He should be more skilled in rhetoric. He should be communicating in a way that is successful and brings a lot of pomp and circumstance. And Paul's like, no. You don't really understand what Christian ministry is at all. I'm just simply a clay pot, and I'm telling other people about this wonderful message on the inside, like that old expression, I'm just a beggar telling other beggars where they can find bread, right? So Jesus is pretty clear. Apart from him, we can do nothing, that it's him that gets all the glory, and we get to be a part of it, which is wonderful, but it's not because something is great about us. It's because God is so great, and we just are simply sharing the greatest message. I'm just a nobody telling everybody that there's somebody who can save anybody. So that's Paul's kind of image there. I'm a jar of clay. I think it's a good reminder for us, lest we maybe get too puffed up, or lest we forget our frailty, lest we forget where the strength and energy and power really comes from in ministry and in life.
Yeah. Well, very true. Thank you very much for that. So my last question was dealing with the last part of the section. You had this repetition of "we do not lose heart," and then you talked a little bit about the outer self wasting away, and you had some fun stories about your wasting of not being quite what you were when you were a teenager. By the way, I do remember being able to go out and do the same thing too. I'm going to ride for 5 miles. I'm going to play 3 hours of basketball. I'm going to ride home, and I'm going to be ready for more.
Yeah. Like what's next?
Now I'm very concerned. Like, am I going to twist my knee and not be able to walk?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do have to take it in. So, but
I'm starting to worry about falling. Like, in the winter, like the ice, I'm like walking slowly.
Yes.
Whoa.
Well, I still, my kids run around the house, and I'm like, I'm always protecting my knees because I know you get a knee injury, and it's like it's a big deal.
Yeah. We're wasting away.
Yeah, we are wasting away.
Tim and Noah, you guys are not wasting away yet. You guys are still.
Well,
doing
they are.
all
It's
right.
just that you can't. The wasting is not speeding up as quickly. Once you turn 40, the speeding up will happen.
Played a lot of basketball this weekend and did some wrestling, and I'm feeling a little wasted away over here.
Yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Verse 17, for this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. So what is he talking about here? And was C.S. Lewis right to choose this as the title for his book?
Weight of Glory, you should definitely read that.
Yeah.
It's an article that C.S. Lewis put together, which is brilliant. I think for me, the text means everything that we go through in this life, because it is short, is comparatively speaking light and momentary. That doesn't mean it's insignificant or that we shouldn't, have compassion or be sympathetic. We should. But yet there's, again, asymmetrical pattern here. So what's happening now can't really compare to what's going to happen in the future. So God's going to use it all, and we can press on because there's a great hope in front of us. You know that illustration with the rope where you have like a really long rope and there's a little tiny little end that's like represents the timeline of this life.
I used that one time. I have a prop in my
forever.
office.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good illustration. So like one day you're going to turn 1 million. Like, how are you going to feel on your 1,000,000th birthday?
Yeah.
Right. So like we got a long, big, huge, beautiful, glorious future, and we can hold on until that day. We can resolve not to lose heart. So it doesn't make it easy, but I think it does give us hope and light at the end of the tunnel. So hold on to the last. Don't be like Noah Graves and leave the game like 2 minutes early. You got to... Noah, you want to comment on that illustration?
Thank you for being an illustration.
I quoted you
right
yesterday in my sermon. Can you verify that was a true story?
It's true. Still to this day, I regret leaving that game.
Still keeps him up at night periodically.
Yeah.
Liberty Flames pulled it out at the end there. Huh? Some kind of traffic situation you were trying to avoid?
I guess so. I can't remember. It was so many years ago, but yeah.
Beat the crowd.
It's a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that wonderful message, Pastor Dave. Hopefully people were encouraged by it. We are leapfrogging over chapter 5. For next week, we're going to be diving into chapter 6. And we're holding on to chapter 5 for Good Friday and Easter. Mm-hmm. So make sure you come back for the Easter season, and you'll get the meat of chapter 5 and the new creation and the ambassadorship. But chapter 6 continues on with the thought from chapter 5 about us being ambassadors. So we'll dive in there, and then also talk about what does it mean to be unequally yoked. This passage that often is used for dating, and I'm not quite sure that's what it's getting at. So we're going to be talking about that this upcoming week. Theology Sprint. Do you have one? We do that, and then we'll wrap up.
I believe Noah does.
So I have somewhat of a choice for you. I haven't done this in a few weeks. So would you like a Theology Sprint question that is categorized as easy, medium, or hard?
It's going to say a lot about them right here.
It's afternoon, so I'll go with medium.
Okay, medium rare.
Not entirely gutless.
All right.
If it was 8 a.m., I'd go for the hard.
Here's a medium one. Actually, it's kind of good that she chose this one. It's kind of similar to what we were talking about before.
Okay.
So the question is, if God is sovereign, then why should Christians pray?
Yeah, that is a really good question. Again, back to compatible. Go ahead.
Well, I'll throw it out there. I think one of the explanations for that, God is sovereign, why should we pray, is that, and I've heard it explained this way, at least part of prayer is to align our hearts with God's heart. So when I pray, Lord, your will be done, I'm asking for him to change what I desire and what I would like the outcome to be. Part of prayer is to bring me up and see him and become more of his mind with how I see the world. It's not necessarily always about asking for him to change things, but as I'm asking for that in the wrestling, it can help me to see things as he desires to see them.
Definitely true about prayer. But I think it's beyond that, because I think also beyond changing us, our prayer actually does matter. So like James says in chapter 3, you have not because you ask not, right? So the verse doesn't mean, hey, doesn't really matter if you ask or not. It's just about changing you because I'm going to give it to you anyway, right? He says you have not because you ask not, right? So, yeah, we change ourselves and align ourselves with God's will, but somehow in God's amazing sovereign providence, he folds into his plan our prayers so that they actually cause things to happen that wouldn't happen if we had not uttered those prayers, which is totally mind-blowing. But that's what the Bible teaches. Like, we pray and God answers, and he's sovereign over all of it. And so, that's a pretty cool concept that we get to actually play a part in how God's will is being brought about in this world. That part of it is because of our prayers, but that's what he allows us to do, which is a pretty amazing privilege that he gives us. So think about that. To not avail yourself of that resource, of that privilege, of that tool that God has given you is so foolish. Is so, like, how could you not take full advantage of the fact that God has invited you to be a part of his unfolding story in the universe? And part of that is you praying. And so there's a mystery there. How do they come together? But we don't want to say that our prayers are ineffectual and that they don't matter and God's going to do what he wants to do anyway. That's not what the Bible teaches at all. So here's a quote from J.I. Packer in his famous book, Evangelism and the Sovereignty of God. Quote, "In the Bible, divine sovereignty and human responsibility are not enemies. They are friends, and they work together." So that goes for prayer, and that goes for so many other things, right?
Well, maybe I'm pressing on that. So I think part of what they're asking in the question is, can we change God's mind with our prayer? And part of the point that I was making is sometimes maybe we pray for things that we shouldn't pray for. So there's an element of that in prayer, but also an element of what you're saying with the mystery. But I'm wondering if that question is asking, when I pray, can I change what God's going to do? Or did God already sovereignly orient that he's going to decide to use the prayer that I pray to accomplish his purposes?
Sometimes we pray for things that are inappropriate, right? So, like, I'll just read the passage from James. So it's James 4, isn't it? So, okay.
Isn't James 5, the prayer of the righteous man is powerful and effective?
Yes.
James 5.
So James 4 says, "You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures." So everything we're saying is true. All these things can be true at the same time. So yeah, we can ask for things that are inappropriate and that are not according to God's will. And somehow, we're also invited, like Elijah prayed for rain, and because he prayed for rain in James chapter 5, it rained. And somehow God allows that to be part of his sovereign unfolding of his plan for the universe also. So yeah, we can ask with wrong motives. We can certainly fall into error there, and we need to align ourselves with God's will. That's part of prayer too. But please don't fall into the trap, and I think this is behind the question of what does it matter if I pray because it doesn't change anything. No, that's an error.
Don't fall into prayerlessness.
Prayer matters. It matters for aligning ourselves to God's will. It matters for checking our heart to see what the motives are. And it actually matters for what comes about in this universe. Your prayer is part of God's bringing those things about. So by all means, avail yourself of that wonderful privilege that God has given us to come to him in prayer.
Good. All right, there's your sprint, Noah. Let's see what you do with that.
Medium, huh?
As we close out today,
This seems like a subjective.
we have a supple, a couple,
We have a flurry.
a couple announcements. So what? Start with some graphics up there, and let's see what we can
Let's
do.
start with this one. I can announce this one. Our youth retreat happened this weekend, and there's an idea of possibly having Johnny on this show, but it didn't work out. So we were filming they're going to come in right after this shooting. And we're going to debrief our retreat. And if you want to hear more about that, the Fresh Wave episode for that will be coming out this week. I actually might be a guest myself on that one. We'll see. So it'll be pretty good, I hope. Next.
After action report.
The Gertrude Hawk fundraiser. If you would like to support our preschool, Little Footprints Learning Center, up to 50% of the proceeds from this will go to support them. So I always like to say with these type of fundraisers, you're going to buy chocolates for Easter anyway. Just buy them from Little Footprints. You don't need to buy them from anyplace else. Go there and do it. It's not like just give money. It's go and buy what you were going to buy anyway, and there'll be a benefit for the preschool. So you can check that out. They're going to have a table in the foyer during the service this upcoming week as well, in between services and after. You can sign up there, or you can contact Little Footprints, and I'm sure they'll have details for you.
Very exciting.
You
All
want
right,
to do VBS?
here we go. I can't believe we're talking about summer, but we are. And so the point of this is twofold. Number one, get your calendar out right now and just mark it so that this is like set aside. And number two, go to the website and register right now, because it actually fills up. VBS fills up around here, and you want to get in. Even though it's March, you want to make sure that you get your spot. So help us know that you're coming by going to the website and registering today. True North, VBS.
Boom.
Hey, this is awesome, man. It's coming up a week from Thursday. Grief Share is kicking off. We've got still some spots left, but they are going quickly. If you'd like to be part of the Grief Share group, now's the time to register. You can do that online. If you've lost a loved one, please join us and come on this life-changing journey with us. We're looking forward to a great group, support you, or someone that you may know who's going through a loss. Please invite them to the group as well. This is open to NBC people, non-NBC people, Christians, non-Christians. If you have a non-Christian friend that's lost a loved one that's looking for a support group for grief, this will be a great place for them to come. They can attend. You don't have to be a Christian to go through Grief Share, and we're not going to force that either. There is a gospel presentation around week 7 or 8, but it's not a heavy-handed gospel presentation. It's there as an option for people to consider the hope that we all have. So it's clear, but at the same time, they create a great environment for people to just kind of enter into the church and experience what the body of Christ has to offer here. So check it out, Grief Share, coming up.
And last announcement.
The Bridge is coming up on March 30th. If you are new with us and you'd like to know more about NBC, meet some of the leadership, some of the elders, this will be a time to do that, and also ask some of your initial questions about NBC. Please go on the website and sign up. Let us know you're coming so we have the appropriate food and preparations, and we would love to see you there.
Yeah, maybe some of you are in New Jersey and you consume our content and are looking for a church. This would be a great time to come, so check that out.
And
well, that's a wrap.
I think that's it for Behind the Pulpit for March the 3rd. About ready to get up and test out your wasting away? Maybe we can go play a little basketball right now and see how it is.
Maybe so.
All right. Well, join us again this week. We're going to continue on with our Resilient Life series, 2 Corinthians 6. And we'll be back here, same bat time, same bat channel here for Behind the Pulpit. God bless.